shock and silence. Why did Jungkook abandon everything so abruptly? No one saw it coming, and perhaps that is why the shock was so overwhelming. One moment, Jungkook seemed to stand at the very peak of global attention, holding everything that countless artists could only dream of: success, admiration, limitless opportunities. And then, without warning, he let it all slip through his fingers. The sudden silence he left behind has become louder than any performance, any song, or any speech he could have given. What could possibly drive someone like Jungkook to walk away from everything so abruptly? And why now, when his influence seemed unstoppable? The abruptness is what unsettles people the most. There was no slow decline, no obvious warning, no series of signals that might have prepared fans for such a departure. Instead, it was immediate, almost surgical, cutting off everything in a way that left even his closest followers disoriented. Questions began to circulate within seconds. Was this planned? Was it a desperate reaction to something hidden from public view? Or was it the kind of decision that erupts from deep exhaustion, the kind that no one notices until it is too late? What makes the silence even more haunting is the contrast with the image Jungkook had always projected. Disciplined, passionate, endlessly dedicated. To abandon everything is not in his character, or at least not in the character the world thought they knew. Fans are now left to wonder, did they misunderstand him all along? Was the relentless image of perfection simply a carefully constructed wall hiding something far more fragile? The disconnect between who he appeared to be and the reality of this sudden disappearance fuels endless speculation, and that speculation is quickly turning into doubt, fear, and suspicion. Every abrupt departure leaves behind a trail of unanswered questions, but in Jungkook's case, the silence feels particularly heavy. It is not only the absence of his voice, but the absence of explanation. Nothing fills the void. Not the endless streams of fan theories. Not the constant discussions across platforms. Not even the reassurances from those who claim to know better. If anything, the silence is louder than any statement could be, because it forces people to imagine the worst. Was he pressured into this? Did he reach his personal breaking point? Or is there something far more complicated, something carefully hidden, that caused him to vanish so quickly? Observers point out the almost theatrical quality of the exit. Jungkook's life was constantly on display, and yet this one moment of disappearance seemed staged in a way that left everyone gasping. There was no goodbye, no farewell message, no indication of a temporary pause. It was total abandonment, as though the weight of everything he had built suddenly became unbearable. For those who have followed his every step, the silence feels personal, almost like betrayal. But could it be that this very reaction, the disbelief, the heartbreak, is exactly what reveals how much pressure he had always been under? For years, Jungkook's career has been described as flawless, a continuous climb with no visible cracks. Yet perfection is often the most dangerous illusion, because it leaves no room for humanity. Perhaps what we are witnessing now is not abandonment, but rebellion. Perhaps this is the only way he found to reclaim his autonomy, by walking away when no one thought he would. If that is true, then his silence is not weakness but power, the kind of power that terrifies because it refuses to explain itself. And yet, the mystery only deepens. Why did he choose this precise moment, and why with such absolute finality? The emotional shockwave is undeniable. Fans who once celebrated his every move now find themselves caught in a storm of speculation, torn between loyalty and frustration. Some interpret his silence as a cry for help, others as a deliberate strategy to distance himself from a world that consumed him. And still others refuse to believe it at all, convinced that he will return as suddenly as he left. But what if this is permanent? What if the Jungkook they idolized has chosen a path that leaves no room for the stage, the spotlight, or the millions who depended on his presence? The silence also challenges the culture surrounding him. When someone as prominent as Jungkook disappears without explanation, it forces uncomfortable questions about the demands of fame, the relentless expectations placed on artists, and the fragility of those caught in the center of global attention. Are we, the audience, partly responsible for pushing him to this point? Did the endless scrutiny and impossible standards create a pressure so suffocating that abandonment felt like the only escape? Or was there something darker, something beyond the public's imagination, that made everything collapse so suddenly? Every theory feels incomplete, yet every silence feels unbearable. The world waits for answers that may never come, because because sometimes the absence of explanation is itself the message. Jungkook's sudden withdrawal is not simply an individual choice. It is a mirror reflecting the brutal realities of celebrity, ambition, and the cost of living under unending observation. The very abruptness of his departure forces people to confront what they never wanted to acknowledge, that even those who seem untouchable can fall, and when they fall, they leave behind questions too heavy to answer. As time passes, the shock does not fade, it transforms. What was once disbelief becomes reflection. People begin to analyze not only his actions but their own reactions. Why are we so unsettled by silence? Why does the absence of Jungkook feel more powerful than his presence ever did? And perhaps the most haunting question of all. If someone like him can walk away from everything, what does that say about the fragility of the structures we worship so blindly? The silence is not just about him. It is about all of us and our uneasy relationship with those we elevate to impossible heights. So here we stand, surrounded by shock and silence, trying to make sense of something that refuses to be explained. Jungkook's abrupt abandonment is not just a story about an artist. It is a warning, a reminder, and perhaps even a challenge. It forces us to ask not only why he left, but why we cannot bear the fact that he did. In the end, maybe the real mystery is not about Jungkook's silence, but about our own inability to accept it. The more we examine the situation, the more unsettling it becomes. The abrupt departure of Jungkook is not merely a question of personal choice or professional strategy. It is also a test of how the public consumes, interprets, and reacts to information. Are we witnessing a genuine event? Or are we being drawn into a carefully engineered spectacle designed to provoke shock and secure attention? This is the question that no one dares to answer directly, yet it hangs in the air, pressing on every conversation, every headline, and every whispered speculation. What if everything we are witnessing is not the truth but a performance? What if silence itself has been weaponized, turned into the most powerful form of communication in an era where words are endlessly cheapened? Could it be that Jungkook's withdrawal is not abandonment at all, but strategy? A silence designed to provoke obsession, confusion, and endless debate? And if that is the case, then are we, as observers, complicit in sustaining the very narrative we claim to question? The reality is that in the modern landscape of media, especially in the interconnected realms of TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and countless other platforms, information spreads at a velocity that often outpaces truth. What we see may not always be what it appears to be. What we believe may not be rooted in fact, but in the relentless circulation of fragments, edited clips, half-formed opinions, and viral reactions. In such a climate, how can anyone claim to know with certainty why Jungkook disappeared? How can we, in good faith, separate reality from manipulation? Every statement that circulates carries the risk of distortion. Every image, every short clip, every sudden rumor can be cut, reshaped, and amplified until it bears little resemblance to its origin. Have we considered that our current sense of shock might be the product of a narrative constructed not by Jungkook himself, but by the machinery of media that thrives on confusion and frenzy? If so, then who truly abandoned whom? Did Jungkook abandon us, or did we abandon the truth in favor of spectacle? It is not enough to ask what happened. We must also ask why we believe it happened. Why do we instinctively accept the narrative of sudden abandonment? Why do we cling to the idea of silence as proof of collapse rather than questioning whether that silence has been intentionally designed to provoke? And more importantly, why do we allow ourselves to be swept into cycles of speculation without demanding verifiable evidence? These are not questions limited to one artist. They are questions that expose the vulnerability of the audience, the fragility of truth in an age where perception is endlessly manipulated. Theo read the silence as fact is to risk falling into a trap. To dismiss it as fabrication is to risk arrogance. The tension lies in between, in the recognition that both possibilities are real, and that neither can be embraced without skepticism. If Jungkook's departure is genuine, then it speaks to the unbearable weight of fame and the destructive power of constant exposure. If it is a fabrication, then it reveals how deeply we are willing to invest in illusions, and how easily we allow ourselves to be consumed by narratives engineered for our own distraction. Which of these do you believe? And on what evidence does your belief rest? The danger lies not in the event itself, but in the way we interpret it. Our reactions reveal more about us than about Jungkook. We want certainty, but we feed on speculation. We demand truth, yet we cling to unverified stories. We insist on transparency, yet we amplify the very rumors that cloud our understanding. Does this not reveal a contradiction within us? Does it not show that our hunger for answers may be the very reason why the truth, if it exists, remains hidden? We must confront the possibility that everything we think we know about this event could be false. The silence may not signify collapse. The departure may not signify abandonment. The absence may not even be real, but only a carefully framed perception fed to us through channels that profit from our confusion. TikTok thrives on shock. Twitter thrives on immediacy. YouTube thrives on endless speculation. In such an environment, how can we separate what is authentic from what is staged? How can we distinguish between Jungkook the individual and Jungkook the narrative constructed for mass consumption? If the truth is uncertain, then what matters most is our response. Do we choose to accept information passively, allowing ourselves to be manipulated by every trending headline? Or do we pause and reflect, asking whether the shock we feel is justified, whether the silence we perceive is authentic, and whether the story we are being told is designed not to inform us but to exploit us? The responsibility rests not only on those who spread information, but also on those who consume it. Are you willing to question yourself as much as you question the event itself? This is the uncomfortable challenge of our time. The disappearance of Jungkook, whether real or staged, whether abandonment or strategy, forces us to confront our own vulnerability as an audience. We are too eager to believe, too quick to judge, too desperate for drama to pause and ask, is this real? Or is this what someone wants us to believe? And if it is the latter, then who benefits from our confusion? Who profits from our obsession? Who gains power from our inability to discern fact from fabrication? So we return to the central questions. Do you believe this event is genuine? Or do you believe it is a construction designed to manipulate your attention? Do you accept what you have seen? Or do you suspect that what you have seen has been crafted precisely so that you will not question?